Hello again and welcome to another Morning Mondays. This is episode 95 and I am extremely excited, guys, because I can announce that I have completed the necessary components for another infantry squad for the Mordian 50th Rifles. And with this squad being completed, that means that I have managed to do the fifth and final squad of the second platoon of the second company of the Mordian 50th Rifles. This is the 25th infantry squad that I have now completed. 250 line infantry are now fully painted, based and transferred for the Great Mordian Restoration Project. That means that I now only have one platoon between me and having a second company, two full infantry companies of Mordian 50th Rifles. We're closing in, guys. We are closing in second company. That means I'll be 2/3 of the way through the project. It means that I will be just a single company away from having a full battalion, which will be a full infantry regiment of the Imperial Guard. And some Marine players like to say, oh, I've collected a whole company of Marines. I've got like 100 Marines. I've got a whole Marine company. Ha! Ha! I say. How about having a whole infantry regiment? It's looking like I'm going to be closing in on 600 infantry by the time we're done. Because we're just talking about the line infantry here, guys. 250 line infantry. Not even talked about the veterans, the assault corps, the auxiliary support, the heavy weapons teams, the special weapon teams, the command squads, the officers. All that stuff is going to get done as well. In fact, coming after this infantry squad is going to be a couple of officers, a couple of young gunslinging platoon commanders. But before we get into them, let's take a look at this infantry squad. I don't want to get too far ahead and leave these guys behind. So, I had, to complete the infantry squad, I already had the 6 riflemen done because I had completed 3 heavy weapon teams last week, and I put those heavy weapon teams into infantry squads. That freed up 2 riflemen from each infantry squad. And I already had a sergeant painted up, so I just had to get a grenade launcher and missile launcher team painted up this week, and that's what I was able to do. And there's a couple of cool things here. Firstly, this is actually only this is the first plastic missile launcher team that I have restored. I used to have like 5 or 6 of them, but between them getting a bit battered and being reused in various parts of the project, I actually don't have too many plastic missile launch teams. But I think by the time the project's done, I'll have 3. And on top of that, I have got 3 metal Mordian missile launchers as well. So I've got loads of missile launchers. I've just not been restoring them as part of the project. In fact, I've been doing a lot of heavy bolters and stuff like that. But anyway, so this is kind of... by finishing this grenade launcher and finishing the missile launcher for this infantry squad, I've kind of put together quite a classic guard loadout, which is your grenade launcher, missile launcher, infantry squad. Now the reason that's normally quite a classic loadout, it's kind of edition proof. So it's never the best loadout, but it's never the worst loadout. It's always just a take all comers sort of options that you can put in your infantry squad, because the 2 weapons complement each other quite nicely and always have done, because the grenade launcher has a frag mode and a crack mode, which means when it shoots frag, it shoots an additional, back in the day it was a small blast template, strength 3, but now it's D6 strength 3 shots, and that's really nice, because it's like, right, that's an extra bunch of like lasgun shots essentially, so that complements the lasgun fire. And then of course you've got the missile launcher, which can shoot a frag mode as well. Now that is strength 4, but essentially it's another D6 shots. So this squad is perfectly happy at slinging out a decent rate of fire into a horde unit. And you know, between first rank fire, second rank fire, and if you're shooting at a unit, you know, a proper horde unit, which, you know, the frag rounds are going to be really effective against, you're looking at a unit here which has got the potential to put out, you know, 12 frag rounds. And then on top of that, you've got the 7 lasguns shooting 4 shots each as well, so 28 lasgun shots on top of that. And depending on what range you're at, you could also be chucking a cheeky frag grenade from the sergeant as well. So it's got a lot of anti-infantry potential. But on the other hand, it's not afraid to pop some shots and provide a little bit of chip damage and supporting fire against some bigger targets. I mean, you've got a missile launcher which is strength 8, AP -2, D6 damage. That is perfectly happy being thrown into anything from heavy infantry, which is, you know, like put that Terminator onto like his 3-up save, or put Vanguard Veteran onto like a 4-up save. You know, some kind of tough infantry. The AP -2 tends to be enough, and the damage D6 means that if you get that wound through that inevitable invulnerable save, you're going to pick that infantry model up because it's like an average of 3.5 damage. Likewise with the grenade launcher, it's strength 6, it's AP -1. Now the AP is not great, but that strength 6 really allows it to punch into some medium infantry and light vehicles. So between these two crack rounds, the cracked rocket and the cracked grenade, you really are able to, if not, you know, really sort of guarantee you're going to blow up a vehicle in one turn, you are able to threaten them. It's something your opponent can't, you know, totally forgo. If he leaves a missile launcher, grenade launcher squad slinging rounds at him all game, so inevitably you're going to get that cracked rocket through. You might get a couple of cracked rockets and a cracked grenade through over the course of a game, and inevitably, you know, that's going to lead to quite a decent amount of damage just from a little squad. So it's a really nice loadout, but as you can hear me describing it, you know, it's not the best loadout. You know that, you know, in this edition, you know, the best loadout, you know, if you want to really go for all on your infantry squads, you know, we're not talking about bare bones here, which is arguably one of the best loadouts, but in terms of really, you know, going in on your infantry squads, the best loadout probably would be las cannon and probably like melter gun or plasma gun. Because, you know, you're going to be facing a lot of infantry and invuns that you need to be doing just damage and just slamming them and all that kind of stuff. A lot of storm shields, you know, negate things like your AP -1 and your grenade launcher. But then there'll be another edition that comes along, which will be the edition of hordes. You know, like 8th edition was often described as the edition of hordes. And I know a lot of Marine players who sort of beginning, you know, who were, before they went full Primaires, when Primaires had, but this was sort of before the Marine 2.0 Codex, which was really good. A lot of Marine players who would take Devastator squads and who would equip them with missile launchers, you know, which is something you just wouldn't think about doing these days, but it's really, if it was back at the beginning of 8th, it was an effective thing that Marines were able to do, because the missile launcher is timeless. You know, it's good in the Horde edition, and it can just about be okay in the non-Horde edition. It's just, you know, same with the grenade launcher. So it's a really nice loadout, and it's actually a concept that I have talked about previously on this channel. You know, addition proofing your army versus chasing the meta. You know, if you want, you can build your army in such a way that it's never going to be fully optimized, but once you've built it, you kind of never need to tweak it again. You know, because it's addition proof. Or you can be one of those players that always wants to be as efficient as possible. And in that case, you are going to be spending more money. You are going to be constantly swapping units out, this, that, and the other. You're going to be putting a lot of time and a lot of money into your army, but you are consistently going to be more efficient. But you know, you're going to be gaining maybe like 10% efficiency for all that stuff. So is it worth it? It's a big question. These are the kind of philosophical questions that we pose in Mordian Mondays. We don't necessarily answer them, but we do pose them, like, you know, like all good academics. Anyway, so that's the infantry squad. That is the overall impact on the restoration project. I'm now working on the officers. I have next to me a full platoon of metal Mordians stripped and ready to be base coded. They've all had new bases. They're all going to get their slots filled in as well with the milliputs, that there's no gaps and good for basing and all that. That's all going to be happening with them. But what's coming next in terms of the Great Mordian Restoration Project is I'm going to be painting up a couple of officers, because it's going to take me a little bit of time to do the base coating and the milliputting and whatnot. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to get a full infantry squad done for next week, but I always want to be painting something up. So you know what I can get done? I've got a couple of guard officers just left over from the many batches of stripping and base coating. I've got a couple of the old Cadian metal lieutenants. I've got one with a bolt pistol and power sword. That's actually a converted mod. It's an old Empire Free Company sword, which I've used since I was 11 years old as a power sword. I'm actually quite excited. It's one of the first lieutenants I've ever had. He's getting repainted up. And accompanying him is one of the old metal Cadian lieutenants who's got a plasma pistol and a power sword, and he's the one that's wearing the standard Cadian helmet. So, got a couple of officers. I actually don't really have a platoon for these officers, but I guarantee they're going to get used. you know, that power sword plasma pistol guy will almost inevitably be used as a sergeant for a veteran squad, inevitably, because I give all my veteran squads sergeant plasma pistol and power sword. So he will, you know, he's going to get used somewhere. And that officer, well, you can't go wrong with the bolt pistol power sword officer. It's quintessential. It's classic. It is so Imperial Guard. I know the meta thing to do now is to have, you know, las pistol and chainsword because your officer shouldn't be doing anything, and I know that in my heart that's the right thing to do. But you know, I like to buy fluff upgrades for my officers. I can't help it. You know, it seems such a shame not to use those cool models. You know, when I'm going to a tournament, obviously it's different, but when I'm playing for fun, I want to use that power sword. I want to use that bolt pistol, and so I like to have my officers with a bolt pistol and a power sword because it allows me to spend a little bit of points on them, a little bit of fluff points on them, without it being super expensive, like having a power sword, having a power fist and like a plasma pistol, because that is super expensive. You know, that's 15 points. Whereas cheeky bolt pistol and power sword, it makes him stand out as an officer. It makes him look cool. Gives him that, you know, that 1 in 10 games when he's able to use it and it actually does something. You know, that's always cool. And you know, it's only 7 points, really. You know, it's not really breaking the bank. You know, I can afford. You know, I suppose you can't really if you're playing competitive guard, but in fun guard you can afford to spend about, I'd say about 30 points on fluff upgrades across your army. I think that's like the limit I would put on myself. You know, enough to give each officer something distinctive, whether it's a power fist, a power sword, bolt pistol or a plasma pistol. It just feels nice to be able to give your officers something a little bit special. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be working on next week. Just in terms of other wider stuff, super excited for the new Black Templars. I have had a practice game with them. I did run a bit of a meme list. It was 100 Primaris Marines, Primaris Crusaders with just literally bolt pistol and chainsword. Absolutely tore it up. Actually genuinely competitive. And I will be probably looking at getting a new Black Tide, but I'm thinking I'm going to get a Primaris Black Tide because, you know, if Black Templars receive some love, it would only be churlish of me not to, you know, not to look a gift horse in the mouth, so to say. So there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, let me know what you guys are working on. Put it down in the comment section below. I always love following your hobby progress. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.